So I'm going to start this off by saying I feel like I'm cheating just a little bit with this video. And what I mean by that is I wrote about this topic of expectation yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. And I feel like I actually got a lot of what I wrote, like got a lot out of what I wrote and got some answers, if I want to call them that. I didn't reread that before deciding to make this video. I mean, I wrote it once and like read it as I wrote it, and then like right after maybe I read it once before I posted it. It wasn't like super artistic or creative in the writing or anything, but I don't know, it was just in that writing book, so I posted it because I post everything I've written in that writing book. Anyway, I still feel like there's more that I can get out of it, but I feel like I don't know, I'm going to be probably treading some of the same ground and maybe getting to some new ground by talking about it out loud, but like in some ways I feel like I already know, like I had one big conclusion and I don't know how I could possibly get to arrive at any other place in the end, but along the way maybe I'll figure some things out that are more helpful to me. So yeah, like I said, I wasn't like studying my writing and just rehashing it for a video, but usually for some reason they don't like cross paths like this. If I've written something down, it's usually, first of all, I just haven't written anything like this specifically before. Even halfway through writing it, I was like, man, this sounds like a video. Like it doesn't sound as, it just doesn't seem the same way as my other writing has been recently. Like I said, it kind of just lacks creativity in the writing and is more of just like, I mean, all the writing I've been doing recently has been trying to work something out, but the way that this is trying to work it out just seems the way that I would speak in a video. I don't know how to explain it any other way. But let's get into it and see where I end up, or see what I learn along the way. So I was just thinking about expectations. I was talking to someone about expectations and like their expectations of me, and that's usually different from when I'm thinking about expectations. I'm usually thinking about my expectations of others, and so that was kind of interesting at the time, where I was just like, what are you expecting? Like, what do you expect from me? And I don't know, that's what kind of got me thinking about the topic, because usually it's not usually it's flipped, so it's the other way, and I'm thinking like, man, I expect so much from people, and people just can't live up to it. I don't know, I just got to this place where I was just thinking like, there's expectations, assumptions, and what was the other word I used? I mean, hopes is one thing, standards, that's the thing. I was kind of lumping all these terms together and seeing how they play together. And I don't know, language is a thing that we use, and so sometimes we need to define it, or we have different understandings of it, or I don't know, we shape language and language shapes us. So anyway, I was just kind of starting to play with that word expect and like, what does it mean, and how does it play with other terms and other things like it, not just like synonyms, but other things that I think of when I think of that word. And why is it related to that word? Like hope, I usually wouldn't think of like, it's not a synonym of expect, right? There's differences there, or like standards or assumption, but those are things that enter my mind when I think about expectations of people and or things, but mostly from people. And it's just this thing that's I don't know, I mean, Gary Vee talks about this sometimes too, about like, hey, just don't have any expectations. Just what's the point? Don't expect anything from anybody or anything from anything, because you'll be much happier that way. Because it will, I mean, it'll push you to just, like, I don't know, you have expectations of yourself. And some people, I think, try to have a philosophy where you don't even have that. I just don't know how to live like that. It's really difficult. I don't know how you get anything done without having expectations of people, because to me, that is somewhat synonymous with having standards and having people. You have standards of people in your life, and not everyone has the same. Like, you're not giving everyone the same standard. You're not applying the same standard to different people, because different people mean different things to you. You have different relationships with different people, and they all different things. Or applying a standard to your boss is maybe different than applying the same standard to a homeless person on the street, and how they should treat you and how your interactions should be. But I feel like everyone has these. I just don't know how it's not an inherent quality in a human being that you would create standards and apply them to people and situations. Like, some of it, if not all of it, is very socialized and built into you because of the structure that we're in. And thus why it's a cultural thing too, right? Where there's just different expectations, different standards, and all this stuff in different cultures and areas of the world, and what have you. Yeah, people get raised. There's like, again, when I use the word culture, I don't just mean like an ethnic culture or something. I mean like it's family culture too. It could be the family unit has a certain culture in it, or there's school culture. There's country culture and all this other stuff. Like the country culture of Canada could be, I mean, it's supposed to be multiculturalism, and the fact that we have many different cultures in our culture of Canada, and like whatever. Anyway, that's just what I mean when I'm using that word. So I just think that it's just not something that you can not have. Like I said, to me, it's an innate thing inside of a conscious human with all their mental faculties and cognitive ability. Like, I just don't know how to be like, you know what, just, you can say, I don't expect anything from you, but then that's what you're expecting, right? So then it becomes semantics, and it's like, my expectation is that I just can't expect you to do anything. But I mean, that's the standard then. The standard is low for that person. You just don't have a standard for them. But that is a standard. So like, I don't want to just play devil's advocate style stuff the whole time. That's not what I'm trying to do. But it's just like, I don't know, when people say like, you just can't have standards for people. You just can't have expectations, never have any expectations. And the philosophy behind some of this stuff, like with Gary Vee and other folks, is that don't have any expectations because nothing's going to be handed to you. You can't trust anyone to do things for you or to help you or assist you. You need to go out and create those things and do them for yourselves. Fine. But like, obviously you have certain expectations of yourself, I would hope. I just don't know how you can't, or how you can't. Again, if you want to have any close relationships with people, you need those standards. Like, how do you need a standard just to say, oh, this is a person that I'm choosing to be around again and again and again and again, right? Like, because they meet this standard. And then if they don't meet that standard anymore, you're left with a choice of like, oh, I've known you for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, but you don't meet my standard of what gives me pleasure in life or gives me enjoyment or positive feelings. You've fallen below that standard for X amount of time, so I'm like, yeah, if I can't expect that standard from you, some people shift their expectations and just they spend less time with them and they're still acquaintances or whatever, and some people just, that's it. Like, you don't meet those standards anymore, and I've given you plenty of opportunity to meet them, so I guess my expectation now is 0, which means we don't talk. Like, or I don't know. But there's just expectations for strangers too, right? Like, you don't expect to get stabbed by someone when you walk by them on the street. Like, depending on where you are in the world, you might it might be safer to assume any one person could do that to you, so you are careful and wary of that, but you don't expect, I don't think you would expect that's going to happen, yeah, it's just this thing that I don't know how to. It would be beneficial to not have expectations of people, because people will not meet all your expectations for the most part. And if you can handle that, then that's fine. And for some reason, I just can't seem to handle it the way that some people seem to be able to handle it. I just think it's, oh, my standards are too high. So the conclusion that I arrived at the other day was that the problem is just me, period. Like, it's inarguable. It's me. Like, I don't know how to regulate my reaction to my expectations not being met. I don't want to lower my standards. So it's just this circle where I have certain standards of people and things and situations, and when people can't meet them, it's frustrating. But if I lower my standards, then if I lower my standards, man, I don't even remember how this circle went last time, how I got it, like how I figured the circle out. But yeah, I wish I could remember now, because I arrived there and now I want to express that and I can't. I know that I said I didn't want to lower my standards. When I lower my standards or my expectations or whatever, that changes my standards. Like, it makes me want to, oh, that's where I arrived. It makes me more misanthropic. That's the thing. Like, I think the argument would be, hey, if you lower your standards and realize that's what you need to do, you expect too much from people, that you will be more embracing of people and their flaws, and everyone's human and we all make mistakes, etc. But it makes me like, if I can't expect like a certain thing from just humanity at large or from specific people in my life, if I can't expect that thing from them and I can't rely on that, it just makes me hate humans altogether. Like, it just makes me more misanthropic. It makes me feel like, yeah, because you can't trust anybody. Like, I make mistakes. I'm a fallible person because everyone who is a person is fallible. Completely understand that. There's just certain things that are so consistently abused or whatever. Like, there's just, I understand that oh man, I don't know. It's the whole thing. I mean, trust is a word that I would throw into this mix too, right? Because it's really just about trusting people to meet your standard. Expecting certain things is trust. And I have a lot of trust issues and issues with trust, and I don't know. I don't know how to find the balance for me. I don't want to change the standard because if I change the standard, I feel like changing the standard, and every time I talk about changing, I mean lowering the standard. Then that makes me not like people even more so, because I have to lower the standard. I'm like, well, why can't you just be what my standard would be, is just like a well-functioning human who, yes, makes mistakes, but more often than not is consistently trying to correct those mistakes and does so, achieves better things and progresses. And every once in a while, you take one step forward, 2 steps back, but in the end, you took 10 steps forward over the course of the year. Like, I don't know. Like, I struggle with that. I struggle with discipline a lot and making changes. Once I get on track with something, once I make the mental click, usually I'm pretty good about just adhering to changes. But it takes me so long to get there of clicking in mentally, and then yeah. I'm not perfect. I can't say that enough. Like, I'm not expecting perfection, but it's just, for some reason, I don't know if it's just me being drawn to people in my life that are so inconsistent, or maybe I'm projecting a standard onto people that I want of myself, I guess. I don't think I'm incredibly inconsistent when I say that, usually my problem is that I'm too consistent and I'm too rigid. So I don't think it's that. I think that, I value consistency, and I don't know who wouldn't. Like, so many people are okay with inconsistency and chaos way more than I am, because they're so laid back. Like, that's a positive thing, which it depends on the context, but I don't like just saying it as I laid back and chill, and it's all, no. People who are laid back and chill can be great people, and they could be super productive and awesome, and some people are not. Some people don't get anything done and won't achieve anything of value and whatever else. It's not an inherently positive trait. Yeah, I just, again, I that balance, I just don't know how to have it. I just keep coming at a loss for words, because I know that this is a circular thing for me. So then the conclusion is I just need to change. But how do I do that? I lower my standards, and I just have to be okay with lowering my standards and being like, hey, your standards are just unacceptable for anyone to attain. I just really don't believe they are, because I'm not demanding perfection. But am I really just drawn to people that can't adhere to the standards I've created? Because I've heard from other people that no one can uphold your standard. I don't know. It's not even the fact that man, it's not about oh man, I got upset with you, so that's it. You can't appear, or I can't adhere to my standards because you did something that made me upset. That's not what I mean. There's just a certain amount of inconsistency that crosses the line for me way too often, and it's just or certain things that I feel how can you be only conscientious 50% of the time? Either you are or you're not. Sometimes people just forget things, but if it's not, you can't control your memory, and I've learned that so much over the past how many years, 3 years, 4 years, that one cannot control their memory. So if they forget stuff and it's legitimate, nothing I can do about that, and it's nothing that they can do about it other than make reminders when they do remember, and then whatever. But if we're talking about, again, fulfilling your word, I guess, oh man, I don't know. I don't know where all these issues came from, and of being so upset by people. I don't know, but that's the most basic thing you can do. Don't misrepresent yourself to someone in a scenario like that. I've obviously lied and misrepresented myself and played games and done things in my life that has happened. I'm not proud of those things, and those aren't qualities in myself that I like. And so in trying to change that too, the more I try to change me, the more I expect from other people, I guess, because that is the projection, I guess, is that the higher standard I hold myself to, I would hold that to other people as well, because I only want people of a certain standard in my life. To me, that seems like an obvious thing. Again, I just don't know where this thing comes from, how you can possibly have no expectations. Like, yes, that would be happier, but I don't, that's like saying, like, you should just be able to live without assuming you're going to be alive the next day. How could you possibly function as a human if you didn't have the expectation that you would be alive tomorrow? Like, it's living like this day is your last is not, like, that's just a metaphor, and it's a symbol, and it's a good one, but it's not literal. It's not, it can't be lived in a literal fashion and be a positive thing. There's just no way to function that way. You could not continue to have a life worth living if you lived every day like it was your last day, in a very literal sense. What would I want my last day to be like? I mean, like, with the people that are closest to me, like, huddled together, just sitting around, or trying to experience something, like, I don't know, trying to control the situation to such a degree that my last moments are filled with this person and that person. Like, no, you need to go out, you need to get stuff done. Maybe you need to work, or if you don't need to work and you're retired, then, like, whatever, there's things that you need to do in your life. Anyway, I'm extending the metaphor too long, but it's just like that. Like, I just don't know how you can possibly function and have human relationships without having expectations of people. Yes, you will be let down, but there's a certain degree that has to be acceptable to you. And again, I just can't find my footing in that area. I can't, like, whatever's not acceptable to me just is apparently acceptable to every other person I freaking meet. So it's just always back to me being the problem, and I have a really difficult time with me always being the problem. It's obviously not always, and that's hyperbole, but it's like so overwhelming that I'm told that I'm the problem, that obviously I am the problem. Like, if I'm the common factor and it's not just one person saying it or one type of person saying it, then I know that it must be me. I'm aware enough about that, but I just don't know how to, like, again, I'm back in this place where I'm like, how do I exist in this world, in this society, and function in this culture? I don't know how I arrived at this place, how I could be surrounded by these people that I'm still surrounded by. It wasn't like, I've never likened myself to an alien before. Like, I don't feel like I am that different, and I have this weird complex about, like, me against the world. No, it doesn't go to that extreme, but it's not like I grew up in some crazy culture that was way different, and then I was removed and then placed here, and that's why it's just so weird and I just can't catch on ever. Usually people do adjust to culture and stuff too, but that's not the case. I was born and raised, in Canada, on the prairies. I've spent all my 33 years between Alberta and Saskatchewan. That's it. Other than visiting, for a couple of weeks here and there. At most, the longest I've ever been gone out of Canada was 2 months in Chile when I was a child, when I was 8 years old. Other than that, I haven't been outside of the country for more than 3 weeks. And again, Chile, when I was in my, like, mid-20s, or mid-20s, like, I was there for 3 weeks. And other than that, it's only been maybe, like, I was in the States for, like, 5 days at a time. Like, one time in 2006? Whatever. The point is that, like, I don't know why. And if I don't know the why, it's really hard to fix. To me, the way that I'm wired, and again, how much of this is nature and how much of this is nurture, there's so much in me that is incredibly different. I feel like it must be nature. And I don't know why, because I'm also different from my parents. And if that's the nature that I have inherited, I don't know, like, maybe I'm more like someone else in the family, and the genes got passed in a weird way and skipped my parents and arrived at me. And it's just really annoying and difficult when it seems like everyone around you expects you to be like them, and you expect them to be like you, because that's just, because you think that you're demanding excellence, and apparently that's wrong. See ya on another time.